Well, no, this is more because I want to know who's interested in getting better, but not everyone needs this class.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these guys, they already have the network set up where they don't really, need to go after new business for their pipeline.
Start all
So,
over again.
but it's also because we're doing the processing, but I'm going to be the broker of record, and that's part of the state requirement that we do training for you guys and that we keep track of it, because that's part of the legal process that they want, is to make sure that you guys are always improving your knowledge and staying up to date on the laws and disclosures, all those kind of things. So basically we'll be able to show them at any time that we have a training program and that our agents attend, but it's not mandatory. You guys come and go with these classes, you just pick the ones you like. And so we got a schedule up here, and it's going to be every Tuesday at noon. And I do that just so you guys it'll be easy for you to know. And also, if you want to bring in a sandwich, bring your lunch, you can get two things done at once. And I'll keep them to 30 minutes or less. You'll get more detailed info that you can bring with you, but I'll keep it quick so that you guys can get back to business. So let's get started. Prospecting. You always need to keep your pipeline full. You could have 3 huge closings in a row, and if you don't continue with the prospecting, you're dead in the water, and you got to start from scratch. And you know how long the lead time is on commercial deals, and we always got to be prospecting. So I have all kind of different prospecting ways, but I would say cold calling, even though we don't like to cold call, cold calling is the way probably at least 75 to 80% of deals get done, and especially when you're newer in the business, because you don't have the money to go and buy leads, you don't have the money to go and do a bunch of other things, and cold calling, even though it's tough, it's still got to be part of your regimen. So prospecting is the foundation for everything else you do, okay? So my next class is on asset class, okay? So we want you to specialize in a certain type of property class, because you can't be good at, multifamily and also an expert on industrial. You can't be the best in gas stations and also the best in spas, okay? So all the other things I can teach you, none of them matter if you don't have clients, if you don't have contacts, if you don't have leads, if you don't have people to talk to. So that's why. And it's a progression, because basically each step has a higher success rate, okay? So the other thing that I want to do with you guys is I want you to put together a couple numbers for me, and we all, some of you have already met with, sit down and figure out what your business plan is like. But I need to know how much you need to make, that you want to make this year. I want to know in the past year or two, how many sales have you done and what is the average commission, okay? Then I need to know how you normally prospect and how many contacts or leads you normally get from that in a month. With just those numbers, I can put it in my little spreadsheet thing I have, and I can pretty much let you know how many people you need to call or email or contact every day to get to your number for income. So that's a way for you to know whether you're on track or not, okay? But it basically goes, there's a lot of different names for all these, but basically let's just say we'll start with contacts, okay? Whether it's an email or a phone call, but basically how many contacts does it take for you to get to a proposal or a evaluation, where you're actually doing the evaluation and doing a listing presentation. So contacts, proposals to listing presentations. And there's also a conversion on how many listing presentations you have to do to get an actual listing, and how many of those listings go to escrow and then escrow to closing. Because you can imagine that this might only have a 2 or 4% success rate. But once you get something in escrow, it's probably better than 50-50 that it's going to close. Okay? Some deals fall out, but basically the higher you go up, like when you get a listing, even if you don't sell it, if it's priced right and a decent property, someone's going to sell it. Okay? And when you do prospecting, you should like focus on something, and going after listings is always the preferred way, because even if you don't sell it, someone else on CoStar, on LoopNet, someone else could sell it. When you have the buyer, that's great, but they might not ever find anything. They may, be full of it, not even be able to get financed. So having buyers is great, and it's easier to get buyers than get listings. I understand that. But when you have buyers, you don't have as much control, and you definitely don't have as much control on getting to the closing part. But it's the same flow when you work in the buy side. It's the number of contacts to actual showings to an LOI, doing their financing, to escrow, to closing. Same thing. It's just it's a flow chart. Okay, so door knocking. Why do I have that up here when we're talking commercial? Can you get business door knocking in commercial? Residential, of course they can, but you still can here too. A lot of my multifamily guys on the smaller properties, they would pull a list of owner occupied, and they would actually go door knock the triplex or the 6 units where the owner of the 6 units also lives there in one of the units. Okay, so that you can definitely door knock. If you do business brokerage, you can definitely go to the little strip centers with the dry cleaners and with the restaurants, because some of them, it's just going to be the business opportunity, but some of them also own the strip center, or they own the land where their building is. Mm-hmm. So then you really got it. You could sell the land and the business opportunity. So door knocking, you can still do it. It's just, it's one of those things where if you got an appointment to go to this property and they, blow you off and don't show up, it's whatever. It's like you can just like come back and do something else, or you can get a bunch of cards and go work the area that you're in and, try to make the best of it. Okay, so always be thinking about ways you can get some business out of it. Okay, so cold calling. Cold calling is something that takes a lot of discipline and it's hard. But if you do it the right way, it can be successful. You got to be disciplined. Like you got to block out 2-3 hours a day to make it part of your routine. Okay. When you cold call, the main thing you have to do is not sound like every other agent that's calling them. You have to be smart. You have to have enthusiasm. You have to basically smile through the phone, and they have to think, oh, this guy sounds a little bit different than everyone else, so maybe I should pay attention to him, okay? So let's go. I know some people do not like scripts, but I want to use a script from here. It's on page 4, just to give you an example of a quick way to do a phone call, okay? Okay, Eric, why don't you be the caller? Okay, I'll be the one that's calling. You just be the one on the other end. Hello, this is Craig from Peak Commercial Realty. How you doing?
I'm fine.
We sell office buildings, and I'm calling about your property at 123 Main Street. When's the last time you had your property evaluated?
Yes, we own the property, but we are not interested in selling.
I understand. The purpose of this call is to introduce myself and my team. The evaluation is free, and I will provide you with valuable information about your property. I want you to use the evaluation to show you what we can do, so that if you ever do want to sell, you will think of Peak Commercial as a large vertical we have access to.
No, just give me your email and I will contact you if I am ever interested in selling.
No problem. My email is craigt@Peak Commercial. May I have yours? I will send you some information about my company and myself. Do you think they would give you your email if you asked that? So if you get the email, that's another person you have in your database, but it's also a way for you to continue the conversation, because next time you call them, you've sent them some info, okay, about yourself, about the company. But always, before you get off the phone, do you own other properties, or are you interested in buying any more properties, okay? Mm-hmm. So maybe when you call about their 8 unit, they're not interested in selling that. okay? But the thing about the call is to do it a little bit different than just everyone trying to see, do you want to sell your property? So make the call about when's the last time you had the property evaluated, okay? So just try to make it about doing a proposal, a listing presentation, or doing an evaluation on their property, because then when they say, I'm not interested in selling, say, I understand, I want to use the evaluation as a way to earn your business. So then whether you want to sell 6 weeks or 6 years from now, I want to be the one you call. I want you to know that I'm the expert in this area and that I'm the one that can do the best for your property. And this is something that you can use. In fact, do you know what your property's worth? Okay, if you don't, this is a way that you can know the value. It's like you might not even think about selling because you think it's worth $3 million, but if it's worth $4 million, maybe you would sell. But you can also use it for 1031 exchange. You can use it for estate planning. You can use it for, I'm going to send you market comps. I'm going to send you a lot of other information in addition to this. Okay. The other thing when you get them on the phone is instead of just reading, and you have to actually make it a conversation, but ask them questions that are going to throw them off, that maybe can get you something to grab onto. So on the other page, there's cold calling questions to ask. So you already know to ask, do you own other properties, what type? But when did you purchase the property is a good one, because if they had it for 20 years, you know they have a lot of equity in that, okay? They might not even have much of a loan left on it, okay? So that's one good thing. If they talk about, you know, they really don't want to sell because they're worried about capital gains tax, then you go into the 1031 part about how you can switch them to another property. What we used to do is be able to take a lot of multifamily owners who had all this equity in their properties here in LA and do a 1031 exchange into a net lease property at a much higher cap rate and with a lot less maintenance. They don't have to worry about a property manager. They don't have to worry about maintaining the roof. They don't have to worry about rent control in LA. So those are the kind of things that you're not going to sell them on the phone, but just giving them that little bit of info and interest is enough for them to get some more information and maybe set up an appointment with you. Okay? And just, if you got a certain price, would you consider selling? So it's just asking them the type of questions that maybe will just jog something or get something a little bit different than just, you know, you can't just sound like a robot and sound like every other agent that's on the phone with them. Okay, so let's go just a little bit more and then we'll go back to the cold calling, because that is probably the biggest part that you're going to be doing. But there are other things that are related to the prospecting, and one is a CRM. Like back in the day, we just used like a tickler file, and you know. But if you really take this seriously, you have to be able to track what you're doing at all times, or else you know you're not going to be as efficient. We just started looking into HubSpot. We'll give you guys more details about that, but there are a bunch of different CRM platforms. Some are free, some are paid, but basically you have to keep track of what you're doing, and you have to have a database of your, you know, of your clients. You have to have a database of brokers that you work with. I mean, all that is, you know, fundamental. Okay, you have to do research before you get on the phone. You have to know that area, the asset class. It's actually even smart to research who you're calling, not so much when it's the small, you know, mom and pop private investor, but if you move up to the family office and, you know, the more sophisticated investor, they don't have that much time on the phone, and you better know your thing, you know everything about what they have and what you can do for them, okay? So energy, enthusiasm, knowledge, sounding different, better than the competition. Okay, so if you're not going to cold call and you're not going to door knock, what are the other ways that you can get leads? You can buy leads. Directlead.com, Exact Data, you can buy leads. They're 50 to 100. Some of them are percentage of sale, but they're not that good. Some of them, the data is not much different than what your database is, and they sell those to multiple people. They're not going to give you an exclusive, so they're going to sell it to 20 different people. So if you're not the first one to call, it's really just a waste of money, okay? All right, so really what you need to do is you need to think to have 4 to 5 different streams of prospecting. This is just an example. So maybe once a week you have a network group, whether that's a Rotary, Toastmasters, or you can go on Meetup and there's like hundreds of groups. You just put your area and they have ones on for investors. They have ones for business owners. So some of them are at 7 in the morning for breakfast, some are at lunch, some are after work. So network group. The only thing about them is make sure it's one that is worth going to, okay? Don't go to one with a bunch of Avon and, multi-level. Go to one with people that, this guy is a CPA, make sure they're professionals and they're people that are serious about business and are gonna be able to bring you the type of clientele that you're looking for, okay?
Usually CPAs and attorneys and things like that are pretty good to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
into because they have clients.
Yeah. So basically you want to join a group that you guys are going to be able to share clientele, and don't be scared if there's a residential realtor in the group, because a lot of times their residential real estate agency does not have a commercial component, and you guys will be able to share business too.
Yeah.
Cold calling. So when you add this as your stream of prospecting, you have to commit to something, whether it's 1 day a week is my cold call day, okay, or 2 hours a day is my cold call day. But you got to set it aside and be disciplined. So you got to be nothing else, no emails, no nothing. I'm gonna just call for the next 45-50 minutes, take a 10-minute break, then I'm gonna call for another 50. So you got to be disciplined about your cold calling, and it's got to be part of your routine. Email blasts. So there's all kind of ways that you can do marketing materials and blast out to your sphere of influence, but also social media. So it's LinkedIn, Facebook, all that, but it's who you actually put as your friends on LinkedIn. I mean, if it's a bunch of college kids and whatever, but if it's other brokers, investors, I mean, if it's the right type of people, it can work. But it has to be disciplined, and you have to have a large presence. I mean, anybody have LinkedIn? How many people do you have on your network?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
You gotta have,
I think around 900 or 1,000.
yeah, you gotta have over 1,000, and you
Yeah.
gotta start.
I don't have that many, I'll tell
Yeah.
you that.
I mean, 50 people is not gonna
Nothing.
get you much, but so it's got to be something you build up. But yeah, and so until you build it up, so add me and you do a post about one of your new listings or just something to get your name out there. Then I'll share it and I'll blast it to my 20,000, and we'll get something going for you. So yeah, social media is back in the day. They used to do mail outs and postcards, and you can still do that now, but people just toss it because it's junk mail.
Yeah.
So now social media is the new way to do mail, and you can reach a lot more people, because if you get some of your friends to share it with theirs, then it multiplies the effect.
But it's also more specific when you use the multimedia, if you set it up properly.
Right.
Because a lot of people use it for personal uses, but if you just set it up for business purposes only, it's probably, unless you have people on there that
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to have that, and then have somebody send you pictures of the family in Miami Beach. I don't have time for that real social stuff in my life.
Yeah.
But business-wise, I'm okay with that.
Well, I kind of used to think that way, but I kind of now am looking at it a little different, because you can use it just for business, but once they see that you have, I use my daughter and my wife, because basically it makes you seem more human and real, and not just you're always trying to hook them, pitch them for business. So it's I use both, but I don't use my personal stuff on LinkedIn. That I strictly use for business. But on Facebook, I use both. It's I'll do an ad about one of our listings or something about I'm recruiting, and then I'll have my daughter's dance recital right on it, just so they, So it just depends. But I mean, I'll have friends and family on there, but most of my Facebook is other brokers and people I know in the business. So, you know, yeah, it just depends on what you're comfortable with, but the main thing is doing it routinely.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Here's some info for you to take, and we have a sign-in sheet somewhere. You can sign in for me.
Sure, absolutely. I got it.
Okay. All right. So, email blast, social media, but it's got to be done routinely. So it kind of makes, you know, if you do like an article once in a while or post, you know, it makes you start to look like you're the expert in your market, in your area. You know, you're the apartment guy in Woodland Hills, or you're the medical office guy in Southern California. That kind of thing. That's how you want to brand yourself, and you know. Okay, so let me back up. Maybe some of you guys don't know my background, but 20 years ago, I was manager of a big prudential office in Florida, and I had commercial, and I had residential agents, and I also had property management, and I had a mortgage company. The market crashed, and my family was here. I moved here in 2006. The market was here, you know, was just starting to do not so bad at the beginning of 2007, so I didn't want to go right back into another brokerage, so I started working for a group of investors that were buying apartment buildings and retail centers. And so I was over acquisitions, and I was over property management for a large owner-operator for a few years. And then about 5-6 years ago, I started working for a traditional commercial brokerage in Beverly Hills. And I had agents that were just like you, that, you know, I had a gas station guy, I had a, you know, agent that was like one of the top office leasing reps in town. So I mean, basically everyone had their own kind of specialty, and I kind of ran the office. And we also had a large portfolio of retail properties and apartment buildings here in Vegas, and I oversaw the management of that. Last year, I was recruited by a startup in Westwood called James Capital Advisors, and they are one of the largest net lease companies, and they do nationwide. So I mean, my guys were up at 6 in the morning because some of them called East Coast, but I mean, basically each one had a state. Had a guy that just did Texas, someone that did Florida, and they were on the phone 6, 7, 8 hours a day, and they were just calling investors, trying to get listings, just on the phone. And basically I used to do training with them every week, and we used to do mostly corporate-backed net lease properties. So a lot of Starbucks, a lot of CVS, and we used to do a lot of portfolios. So we didn't sell a Pizza Hut. We would sell a portfolio of 200 Pizza Huts for like, you know, $225 million through a REIT. And then we would do sale leasebacks of like, you know, 75 Bojangles for, you know, a franchise owner in the Southeast. So I had agents that were all the way from, you know, 20-year-old interns right out of college, all the way to, you know, people that have been in the business for a long time, making over $1 million. So I know the whole gamut of the business, but I would say that because from that last position, cold calling and you know, the prospecting that way is something that they just did at, you know, much more than most places. Yeah. So you kind of learn what works and what doesn't work. So the agents that could make their 50th call sound as enthusiastic as their first one were the ones that had the most success. Okay, the guys that left a voicemail that said, "This is you know, Gil from whatever, you know, please call," you know, they never got any call back. But the guy that would be like, "Hey, how you doing? This is Ty from James Capital Advisors, and I got this client. He's, you know, he's got $6 million. He's got a place in the next 30 days on a 1031 exchange, and I thought you'd probably be perfect. Please call me back." That guy got called back.
Yeah.
Not only because he said something that, you know, might interest them, but he also had a great personality when he said it. Okay. Now, once the guys got a little more successful, they started out with like, you know, mom and pops, private investors. But then once they moved up, one of the steps they always did was starting to go to these shows, the seminars, like the ISCA, the retail conventions and things. Because then, a month or two before the show, you get a list and you could start calling the people that are going to be there and set up meetings. Because all these owners, all these big companies that have like acquisitions directors and, you know, real estate directors and VPs of real estate that buy and sell these type of properties, they're at this show and they're on an expense account, so they like to drink, they like to have fun, whatever. So it's like you go and put a face to the name and you get a relationship with them. You just get like one of those every once in a while and you have business set up for the rest of that year.
What is this particular group? CSC, what is?
ICSC is for retail centers. So basically they have them all over the place. They have them in Vegas, Atlanta, LA. So basically it's like everyone that's in the retail center business that, you know, owns or invests in retail strip centers all the way up to malls.
Okay.
But they also have the AOA convention, and that's the apartment owners.
I belong to that, so
Yeah.
I know
So I
about
mean,
that.
basically, whatever asset class you're in, they're going to have these kind of seminars and shows somewhere. And even though it's expensive, it's a write-off on your taxes. But it's something that once you want to move up to the next level, it's worth it, because that's where you're going to like meet the bigger players, and you're going to like be able to develop more than just talking on the phone, but a personal relationship with them. And that's where you're going to like get the bigger deals and the bigger and steady business. It's like I had agents that basically they would do so well at this that they would have one of the executives call and say, "Hey, we have 12 million to place. What do you have for us?" "Oh, okay, I have this and this. Adds up to 12 million. Let's do it." I mean, how good is it to get to that point? Okay. So the other some of the other ideas you can do is you can do first-time investor seminars. Okay, you can do them at libraries, you can do them at community groups, you can do it here. It doesn't matter, but you set it up with an attorney, an escrow person, 1031, whatever. But basically, you know, doing seminars and things that make you the expert, and you record it and you put it on your LinkedIn. So you kind of like, you know, just start making everything work in combination to always, you know, be helping you to get to the next level and keep your pipeline full of prospects. So let's see, postcards, mail outs. You can still do those, but people just throw those away and it's expensive. But it's something that sometimes is part, it can be part, but you know, it's not something that I'm going to tell you is like, you know, going to get you a whole lot of business. All right, so signage. Okay. So have you ever seen on some of the busy streets, like some of these Lee and Associates, Coldwell Banker, where they have the same for lease or for sale sign up for like months and years and years?
Yeah.
Okay? Here's the deal is that sometimes they don't even care about whether they can lease or sell where that
Property.
It doesn't matter. It could be overpriced. It could have been leased out forever. It doesn't matter. They want their sign up on that good location, because even if they don't sell or lease out that property, their name and phone number and email address is up there for thousands and tens of thousands of people to go by, and that is like incredible advertising. Okay? So if you know somebody that's got a good property could be worth $5 million. They might not sell until, you know, unless they ever got 7. If you can put a sign, if you can put your signs on some good locations, you will get business off of it. Okay? So that's one good thing that you should, because the sign doesn't cost much. But if you have to what's called buy a listing and take an overpriced, you know, buy an overpriced listing that, you know, looks like it's falling down and it's in the, you know, on some side street is not worth anything. But a nice property that's like on a main street, you might not sell that one for a long time, but the longer it takes, it's okay. As long as the seller knows that it's not going to sell right away because he wants a very high price. But in the meantime, you get some great advertising from that. So that's something to, you know, consider. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
All right, so I got you guys some handouts, which has lots of more, you know, it's got 50 different things from, you know, being part of charities. I mean, a lot of this is common sense things that you guys, you know about, but the thing is that you actually have to do them, and you have to do them regularly before, because eventually you get to the point where you have a lot of regular clientele that are investors that you're their agent, and they're going to call you when they need something. But until then, and even when you get to that point, you still want to be always prospecting. Now, ideally, you want to get to the point where you're making so much money that you have a junior or an assistant that's doing a lot of your calling, because you want to be on listing appointments and you want to be out with clients. But to get to that point, you have to do all these steps to actually get to there. Now, following this along, what I would offer to you is that I am available to listen to you when you do your cold calling to see if we can tweak it or improve it. And then once you get somebody who wants to do a listing presentation, we can sit down and we can role play and practice your listing presentation before you go on it, so that you're not practicing in front of a client, because they're not going to meet with just you. They're going to meet a few other brokers, and the one that's going to get it is the one that dresses the best, impresses them the most, and they think can actually get the job done.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that they think that is you, okay? And then once you get to the listing escrow stage, whatever, that is easier, but we still want to make sure that we're always doing things to make sure that we have the best way to, for things to succeed. Like, you want to make sure that you manage your client's expectations so that they don't think, you got to make them, they have to know all the different pros and cons of what they're deciding. And they also have to know that, this offer may be a little bit more, but it could fall through on financing, or if they don't find their up leg on their 1031, so you just have to make sure that they know all of the different options, so that if it does happen, they can't say that you didn't inform them.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody have any questions?
Is this written down? That's on the board? you have it on
That
there?
is mostly in there, but it may not be exactly. So if you want to take a picture of it, that
That's
might be
what I-
good.
yeah.
Anybody else have any questions?
No.
Okay. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
And on Thursday, Fridays afternoons is when I'm going to be available for like one-on-one type coaching and things like that. So if you guys want to set anything up, you guys got my, where I am.
All right,
Awesome.
Thank you.
Craig.
You know what?
Appreciate it, Craig.
I have an area out in Sun Valley
Yeah.
and San Fernando area out there. I know people out there that own businesses out there and own the property.